This is Rudkowski of WeAreChange.org here at PorcFest, and I'm joined by Lynn Ulbricht, the mother of Ross Ulbricht. And after the case has been over, Lynn has told me just the most insane information that has been coming out that wasn't able to come out before. She gave us a full picture of just the insane kind of measures the federal government went to put Ross Ulbricht in jail for the rest of his life without parole. Now, this information I never heard before, and it's very important to find out what happened because it sets very dangerous precedents for the internet. And also, there's a possibility that we could also help out and do something to help Ross out. Now, Lynn, one of the things that shocked me and surprised me is what happened to Reason magazine. What happened?
Well, people were very shocked at the sentence. It was draconian, it was over the top, and many people expressed that shock. Few of them were on Reason.com, and you could say they were obnoxious remarks, but they weren't abnormal for the internet. And the federal government decided that it didn't like those, and they issued a grand jury subpoena to Reason magazine to force them to reveal private information about these individuals so that presumably they could go after them and prosecute them and potentially put them in prison. So they were Reason was being forced to do that. And then they issued a gag order that Reason wasn't allowed to discuss this.
Wow. So the Reason couldn't even describe what was happening to them because of this, this order that they were throwing at them as well. Now, we also know Chuck Schumer also has his fingerprints all over this case as well. Can you tell us how he is involved?
Well, Chuck Schumer initially called for the closing down of the Silk Road in June of 2011. And when Ross was arrested in California, strangely, he was brought to New York to be tried into Chuck Schumer's state. The main prosecutor is Preet Bharara, who was Chuck Schumer's special counsel for a couple of decades. And the judge presiding over the trial is Catherine Forrest, who was recommended by Chuck Schumer for her position. Chuck Schumer publicly convicted Ross before trial, congratulating DOJ, hey, you got your man, good work, before trial. Yeah. This was a trampling on a very basic tenet of our law and our justice system, which is the presumption of innocence. We are innocent until proven at trial guilty, and Chuck Schumer just decided to bypass trial and convict Ross in his state where Ross is being tried publicly and saying he was guilty.
Now, we also know during the court proceedings there was a lot of decisions made by the judge that didn't let Ross defend himself fully. There's a lot of evidence, there's a lot of witnesses. Can you give us just some of the details about what was happening during the trial and why a lot of people online are saying it was rigged from the very beginning?
Well, first of all, cross-examination was curtailed. Things that a government agent under oath stated were deemed irrelevant and not, the jury was told to forget they ever heard about it. Witnesses for the defense who wanted to challenge the federal witnesses about Bitcoin, about technology, were blocked from speaking at the trial. And basically, without witnesses and without the ability to cross-examine effectively, it's hard to have a fair trial. In addition, there was evidence that was precluded, and it's come out now that there were two corrupt agents who were using their access to Silk Road to steal almost $1 million, and they had full keys to the kingdom. They could change passwords, reset PIN numbers, commandeer accounts, including the DPR's account, and it's on and on. Private messages, keys, posts on the forum and marketplace. They had full access to the site for almost a year. Yeah. And this is going to be part of the appeal, because how can you trust evidence taken from the server and from the site when these corrupt agents had access to the whole thing?
And when they were operating the site, the defense used families who died from drugs during the sentencing hearing as well. But the federal agents had control of the site as well. Is that correct?
The federal government seized the site in June of 2011, and after that, 2 of the 6 people that allegedly died from drugs sold on Silk Road died. And so the federal government had the ability to close it down. But I'd like to say something about that. I feel terrible for those parents of the people who died from drugs. However, to have a courtroom run by emotion is not what's supposed to happen. It's supposed to be facts and evidence. And we hired a forensic pathologist to go through each alleged death, and he concluded, and he's very experienced, that there's no way to scientifically, categorically say that those people died from drugs from Silk Road, or that they even died of drugs, or those particular drugs at all, or even drugs at all, because one of them had been in the hospital with pneumonia. He'd just been released. Yeah. So it's very, it was run by emotion, and that is, I don't think it's a place in a courtroom.
And it's also very questionable how the government got into the servers, because it's a big mystery, isn't it?
Yeah, it certainly is. There was a declaration by ex-FBI agent Christopher Tarbell, who was the head of the investigation. Didn't show up at trial, by the way. And so he couldn't be cross-examined about it, but he declared how he found the server, and experts all over the world cried foul, said that is impossible, it's gibberish, it's a lie, basically. And he said, well, I'd answer you, but oh darn it, I didn't save my work, so I can't prove what I'm saying, just trust me. And meanwhile, this is under oath, and experts are saying it doesn't even jive with the FBI's own evidence.
Yeah. Not only did they lie, but they also made sure the jury didn't hear about the corrupt agents as well.
Oh, correct. That was precluded. And really, to me, the corrupt agents are a scandal, but the real scandal is that this was precluded from trial, preventing the jury to hear this evidence. Yeah. And it would have changed the whole trial.
Yeah. They never got the full story as well. And this is a very dangerous precedent for the internet because, technically, what Ross set up, or allegedly set up.
He says he set it up. Yeah. He says he created it.
Technically, under this kind of rule, if someone orders drugs on Facebook or uses Facebook to talk to a friend and say, hey, I want to buy some drugs through the messenger, Facebook is facilitating that sale through the communications of it. And now, Zuckerberg should go to jail as well if we're playing by the same rules, but obviously we're not playing by the same rules. Can you also just maybe expand on the dangerous precedent that was set with this case?
Well, there actually are several. One of them is that they use almost all digital evidence for their evidence, which lowers the standard of evidence tremendously because it's very easily created, edited, faked. Yeah. And there's other courts that have thrown it out. And even a mortgage company won't take a screenshot of a bank statement because it's so easily faked. Yeah. And yet it's used to put a man away for his life. And look, whether you believe their digital evidence or not, the point is that the potential is there to create digital evidence to go after people. It's a very troubling precedent. That's just one. There was also the precedent of the Fourth Amendment, as you mentioned. How did they find the server? They say even if we hacked into it, it's fine. We can do that. So they're saying they can hack into a foreign server without a warrant. In addition, there's a question about how they searched the laptop, Ross's laptop, because now if that had been a file cabinet, a physical file cabinet, it would be clearly unconstitutional to do it the way they did, which was have a general warrant with no particularity. But the Fourth Amendment requires particularity. You have to say, I'm looking for this file in the file cabinet. They say, well, if it's a laptop, that doesn't apply. We can just say we're a laptop and we'll rummage around and go on a fishing expedition and find anything we want. This is a very important point for the digital age because, of course, a laptop is like a file cabinet on steroids. It's like we all keep our information on a laptop or a phone, and they're saying, well, Fourth Amendment protections do not apply. And so this is very important. In addition, Ross has been made a poster boy for this failed drug war. And if you care about the drug war, this is a battle in that drug war, and you can help us by helping us appeal it, because that's what they're doing. Yeah. They're making him an example. Yeah.
I remember Judge Forrest making the kind of example during sentencing, saying that this wasn't helping the war on drugs, this was escalating the war on drugs. But you guys, the defense also did a lot of research into this, the effect of the Silk Road on the kind of war on drugs. Can you tell us about some of the results?
Yeah, well, because they brought these alleged overdose deaths and, this emotional manipulation, not only did we hire a forensic pathologist, but there were people who'd done academic research into the Silk Road who came to the conclusion that it saved lives, that it actually removed violence from the drug world, and they were making that point. And the judge dismissed that, said that's not true. And then since then, there was the global survey done in England of 100,000 people who came to exactly the same conclusion that Silk Road did save lives. So, I'm not necessarily defending Silk Road and everything that was on it or anything like that, but that is a point, yeah.
That is a very important point because this case is extremely complex, but
It is.
extremely important.
Very
Is there anything else that we missed that people should know that they don't know about this trial that couldn't come out during the court proceedings?
Well, of course, a lot of it's come out since. I think people really need to focus on the fact. It's very easy to be distracted. There's a lot of sensationalism around this case. There's, the alleged murder for hire that, by the way, was never charged, never convicted, and that I don't believe for a minute, but was used against Ross. It was used to deprive him of bail, deprive him of a witness list in time, used very heavily at trial, and then at the sentencing to justify life in prison. So, but it was never charged, never proven, never convicted. So that's important to know because I feel like it smeared Ross's name. Oh gosh.
I mean, that's what's all over the media now. I mean, when you look at the Silk Road case, when it's covered by the mainstream media, the main thing that they were hammering away is, murder for hire, murder for hire, murder for hire. But Ross wasn't even officially charged with that in any way, shape, or form. Many people do not even know this, but it was thrown out there by the prosecution as a way to get the emotional kind of feelings. And they played on emotions of a lot of the juries, and a lot of the things that happened seem extremely underhanded by the federal government with their prosecution of Ross. And what is the next step? What can people do to help? Is there a chance of appeal? I mean, obviously, the information that you're telling us now that came out after the court case is extremely damning of the federal government. What are the chances of appeal, and how can people help you and Ross out right now?
Well, Ross is appealing, and we have the defense is filed, and our lawyer says we have very good points, very, very strong points for appeal. It's not cheap to appeal. We already owe a ton from the trial. Trials are extremely expensive, and going forward, we have to fund this appeal. So we're only one family, and we're not a wealthy family. And, there's no hidden wallet, there's no money out there. We've gotten a ton of support that's gotten us this far, and of course with our own efforts. People can help by going to freeross.org and giving what you can. I mean, even if 1,000 people gave a price of a cup of coffee, that would help. It needs to be grassroots, because this is going to affect us all. It's not just about my son, my personal thing. I see it as a bigger battle as well, because these precedents, we're at a crossroads in history right now, and we've left the 20th century. We are careening into the digital age, and they are making laws and precedents that are going to impact all of us going forward. And this is a very, very pivotal time in history, and this is a very important battle at that time against the drug war, but also against digital privacy and really freedom. So please help us. We need the help.
Yes, and these court cases are extremely complex. You were just telling me about the terabytes of information that was thrown during discovery that Ross wasn't even able to look at. Can you just that one last point that I remembered, because this is also just a clear violation of justice, what happened to Ross when he was trying to look at all the documents that they were persecuting him with. Can you just give us a story?
Well, apparently, this isn't even unique to Ross. That's what's really sad. This is what they do. Our lawyer said they operate by ambush. They wait and then dump a bunch of stuff on at the last minute so a person can't defend themselves. And they did that throughout with Ross. And in fact, the last week before trial, they dumped 7,500 pages of very important stuff on. They'd had it for over a year. So this is a tactic, and it's not playing fair. And there's a whole list. But it's not just Ross. This is what they do.
Yeah. And then was Ross able to see them? They said that they gave him a computer. I mean, the story that you told me before about him having to miss lunch too, is that true?
Yeah, I mean, actually, for the kindness of the guards, he finally was able to get some food. Yeah. But for the first part, before he he had to either decide between eating and reviewing the evidence. And so he reviewed the evidence, and he was hungry. Yeah. Because you're dealing with not only all those blocks, but the prison bureaucracy too, and it wasn't right. It was we were worried the clock was running out and he wouldn't have a chance, and the trial was postponed. But then they dumped more. It's what they do. They also pile on charges. They'll pile on charges for the same action all different ways. So you're charged but the same action, all different kinds of ways. And then by the time it was the sentencing came around, they vacated them, and so he wasn't actually sentenced for as many charges as he was convicted of. And it prejudices a jury. Sounds like a worse guy than he is, and they do this routinely, not just Ross. And it also intimidates people into pleading, because we've got all this against you, and people don't feel like, they don't have faith in the trial system. I don't either now. They don't have faith that they're going to have a fair trial. And so they plea, even to sometimes, often to things I've heard that they haven't even done.
Yeah, that's what they're doing. And I still remember when you told me how you were visiting Ross and he was just asking you to just get anything out of the vending machine because he was hungry and couldn't eat because he really wanted to review all the charges against him. Lynn, you're an incredibly strong woman. Check out freeross.org, and I love you. Thank you.